Young Ross Singleton was born in Detroit and has lived in Alabama, Munich, Boston, San Francisco, and New York. He is the nonfiction editor of Asymptote, Journal of Translation. He has written short stories, translations, reviews, and essays, which have appeared in journals such as St. Anne's Review, Cafe Review, New Madrid, Fiddleblack, Asymptote, the Los Angeles Review of Books, and Fiction Writers Review. Today, Young will read us from his novel, Two Big Differences.
Thank you. Here's my novel. Thank you, Kristina. Go ahead and begin. This is from chapter 7 with Ballantine. Watching him, Zina leaned toward me and said, "My papa don't want to learn lingua franca of modern times, English. I think he needs therapy." I thought, "Which kind of therapy, Zina?" I answered my thought in English. He would do narrative therapy, like I was doing. I was redoing the narrative of my life. So far, my life hadn't kept anybody reading or listening. "If he speaks Russian, why should I learn English?" her father asked. I shrugged the Odessan way. Nobody noticed. I lifted my fork and poked the eggs. "Valya, why did you come to Ukraine? Do you have relatives here?" One aspect of my personality, which I was trying to change, was that I spoke without thinking, even in a language foreign to me. Such is the state all foreign language speakers wish to attain. There's a risk. To answer his question, I said, "No relatives. I didn't have anything to do." Their stares shrugged at me, wanting more. "I think," I sighed, "I'm in love with your daughter." For Zina's father, I used the formal, the vous. I didn't presume any familiarity. She's my only connection with this place. They locked eyes with one another. Her father had an aura around him. It seemed difficult to tell why he was piqued, whether out of anger or out of some reckless joy. After I said I was in love with his daughter, this aura became reduced to a line. I braced for his attack. The line snapped, and his laughter rose in pitch like a doomsday siren. At least it wasn't anger. Zina was laughing too, and the only tears I ever saw there formed in her eyes, into which I looked so deeply. "Oh dear, what will we do with you, good boy?" her father asked. I waited for the laughter to calm down a little before I said, "I have Russian roots." Zina, who saw I was serious, took a bite, pointed with her fork at herself and her father, who was still cracking up, and said, "But we not Russians." "Ukrainian roots," I corrected. "Odessans." She watched me. She put a small bite of food in her mouth, tried not to laugh. She tried as hard as she could. It didn't work, and she had to put her fork down and even spit out her food to prevent from choking. "I wanted to get out of the USA," I said. "Da!" he said, which started a whole new chorus of wicked laughter from both of them. Each one outdid the other, only to be outdone by the next wave. Each time this happened, I sank further into my seat. The laughter silenced me. I decided I should wait until it ended. That was the best way to learn, to shut up and hear, not even to listen, to let the sound cross me like a wave. I was able to finish my eggs. I was able to drop my fork on the plate. I was able even to see myself in the greasy reflection on the ceramic. As the laughter finally petered out, as it turned into snickers and hooting calls, and Zina wiped her eyes for the last time, the room became silent. I wanted them to experience that too, so I waited. There were noises from her father's neighbors behind the walls. I wanted to ask, is this a komunalka? I didn't want to be the first to speak. My Adam's apple bobbed. First, Zena's grin faded, her father's second. Once those grins were gone, once there was no longer any joy at my expense on their faces, I opened my mouth. I opened and asked what I'd wanted to about the communal apartment. This question prompted the second longest amount of time people have spent laughing at me, the first being the moment prior. Her father gaped at the space in front of himself, leaned forward so that his elbows touched his knees, clapped his hands together and held them in a throbbing shake. He screeched laughter. To Zena, he shouted, I understand why you brought him. Everything he says is golden. It was a catastrophe. I crossed my arms as if to defend myself. I waited and listened. It hurt. I was learning through pain how to speak in this new world to which I'd come. The pain was helping me to cross the surface. Pain, says Marx in Das Kapital, is necessary for development. The humiliation was my measure of humanity. Zena coughed and cleared her throat. She was trying to become serious. It used to be, probably, a titter erupted, but my papa converted it. A deep sigh fell in tone. Yes, this the famous communist kitchen. People so close they become enemies. They live right next to their enemies all the time. She looked at me. It was as if to make sure I was listening to this part in particular. It's the Soviet way. People never break up. They never part ways. No matter how much they make the fun of the other, no matter how much we laugh at you. Zena twitched, turned to her father. Now, probably, you wish you learned English, huh? Still laughing, he said, I understand everything except one thing. He turned to me and, wincing, asked, who chooses to come to Ukraine without family, without the language, without anything but my Zena? He waited a moment before saying, it's a bit strange, but it's okay. You brought my Zena back. I brought him, Papa. Zena turned back to me. Nobody wants to go to Midwest, right? It's as bad as Ukraine. You come from one Mukhastransk, this means shithole, to another. Zena already knew what I'd say. She started again. The flyover states. There was a kind of performance going on. The other Zena, the Zena I thought I knew, said to me, be careful. Don't bring me out of the closet in front of my father. So I'll end there and introduce.
It was wonderful.
Thank you, Kristina Gorcheva-Newberry. A Russian-Armenian émigré, Kristina Gorcheva-Newberry moved to the US in 1995 after having witnessed perestroika and the fall of the Iron Curtain. Writing in English, her second language, she published 50 stories and received 9 Pushcart nominations. Her work appeared in Subtropics, Zoetrope, All Story, Joyland, Electric Literature, Indiana Review, The Southern Review, Gulf Coast, TriQuarterly, Prairie Schooner, Nimrod, Confrontation, and elsewhere. Kristina is the winner of the 2013 Katherine Anne Porter Prize for Fiction, the 2015 Tennessee Williams Scholarship from the Sewanee Writers Conference, and the 2020 Ross/Shumaker Prairie Schooner Book Prize in Fiction for her first collection of stories, What Isn't Remembered, longlisted for the 2022 Penn/Robert W. Bingham Prize, and shortlisted for the 2022 William Saroyan International Prize. Her debut novel, The Orchard, was published by Ballantine Books in March of 2022. The paperback edition will be a Penguin Random House Book Club title, forthcoming in March of 2022.
Thank you, Jan. I will read from the orchard, from chapter 8. And I always pick different passages to read so the rest of the book doesn't feel sad. And it's fall, so I picked that passage. And then it was fall again, the beginning of classes. Almost 15, Milka still remained thin as a willow tree, her long arms drooping at the sides of her body like branches. She had a good appetite, though, and at the dacha, my grandmother always added an extra meat patty or a piece of cabbage pie to her plate. Milka would eat all of it, sweeping the juices with a heel of black bread, but an hour later, she'd be starved again. It's as if they don't feed her at home, I heard my grandmother tell my mother, and my mother said, something is wrong with that family. They never come to school or attend any parental meetings, and Milka doesn't seem to miss them either, staying with us for nearly 3 months. I don't mind, but you'd think her mother would at least offer to send some sweets. You'd think, my grandmother said and sighed, sucking on a lump of raw brown sugar while sipping her tea. Milka never had birthday parties. She never invited anyone except for me to her flat. She said she was embarrassed by her ugly furniture, but I found it hard to believe. For one thing, there were very few things that embarrassed Milka. If she had to pee, she could squat on the side of the road, flashing the pale moon of her ass before the rest of the world. And for another, most Soviet flats had the same primitive sets of brown tables and chairs, beds and dressers, devoid of grace or character. No one thought them ugly. They were what they were, ordinary pieces used by ordinary people and intended to last a lifetime. I knew that Milka didn't want anyone to meet her parents, even though she would never say so. In all the years that we had been friends, I'd barely spoken to her mother and stepdad on the phone or after school if I stayed at Milka's flat later than usual finishing a project. They always seemed either tired or in a hurry or both. Occasionally, Milka's stepfather would peep into her room while I was still there and ask, "Got a cigarette? I know you two smoke. I can smell it." Milka would jump off the bed and smash the door shut without saying a word. Milka was 7 months old when her dad died in a car wreck, so she had no memories of him but one photo, a large framed portrait that hung above her desk. Once her mother tried to dispose of it, but Milka rescued it from a pile of old newspapers and torn shoeboxes next to the building's entrance. She brought the portrait back to her room and threatened to burn her mother's favorite blouse if she ever again trashed any of her personal belongings. During those moments of explosive anger, which were propelled by the riot of hormones, as my mother would later explain to me, I felt dwarfed next to my best friend. Physically, I had always been stronger, bigger. In gym class, Milka couldn't even climb a few centimeters up the rope or muster more than a couple of push-ups. She had no muscles, no womanly flesh, no stamina, and yet, when she fought with her mother, she became a giant, stomping about her flat, crushing furniture and people with her mighty feet. She said things too, things I could have never articulated to any adult, much less my parents. I would have been embarrassed, and I would have been grounded, denied movies or dessert, tripped to the dacha. But Milka tossed words at her mother the way she tossed cigarettes in the trash. One afternoon, right after Milka's birthday, her mother returned from work early and caught us drinking their homemade plum wine diluted with water. She sniffed at Milka's glass, then set it back on the kitchen table and smacked her daughter's head. "This one is for drinking, and this one is for stealing." She raised her hand and was about to slap Milka a second time, but Milka turned around and caught her mother's hand. "You touch me again, I'll go to the cops and tell them how you and your beloved husband have been abusing me for years since I was a baby." "What are you talking about? That's not true," her mother said. She was a short, mousy woman with ashy skin and blonde hair a shade or two dark at the roots. "It is true," Milka said. "Don't make me tell Anya what a horrible monster you are." "I give you everything I can. You might not think that, but I love you." Milka shrugged, looking out the window where the leaves had begun to change colors. "You think it was easy after your father died?" her mother asked. "To be left like that, with a baby and no job, no money, nothing but 1 egg and 3 beets in the fridge?" The woman's eyes filled with tears, fingering the hem of her stretched brown sweater, the color matching the floor. She went to the sink and started washing dishes. As her hands moved in circles over a greasy skillet, her shoulders stooped even lower. Her narrow hunched back, her drooping head gave the impression of a wounded animal. There was something so pitiful in the way she stood, but vulnerable too. I watched her shoulders jerk as she made a sniffling sound, and I knew she was crying. I switched my eyes to Milka's face. Winter lived there, with its ferocious winds and death ossified earth and hard, frozen snow. Her eyes glinted like ice chips, and in her dark pupils I could see my own face, baffled. I was afraid to say a word, afraid of what Milka might say back. The silence grew, billowed like a storm cloud, gray, menacing, unapologetic, threatening to swallow everything in the room. Me, Milka, her mother, the mound of dirty dishes she kept rinsing over and over. But then I remembered that I had to pick up sheets from the laundromat. So I packed my bag as fast as I could, excused myself, and scurried out the door. Once outside, I stood in the yard lighting a cigarette, still thinking about Milka and her parents, who were so different from mine. Her mother had said that she loved her, and yet it was not the kind of love I experienced at home. There was no sentiment in it, no longing, and no tenderness. In a way, it reminded me of a piece of stale bread, which was still food, but not nourishment. I thought of love then, of how it was supposed to be beautiful and free, and how my mother had always said that it wasn't a nuclear bomb that would destroy us, but lovelessness. How one day we'd wake up and not recognize our country or one another. Children would become strangers to their parents, husbands to wives, friends to friends. My mother was convinced that it was love that allowed us to know people and tell them apart or form a connection. For her, love was a true feeling, hatred and emotion. Living without love was like living in a cave. You were always cold and always in the dark. If my grandmother thought that God was the reason she had survived the war, my mother thought that it was my grandmother's love for her children that made her live. I thought of Milka and how thin she was, despite all the food she gobbled at all hours. And I realized that perhaps it was indeed lovelessness that kept my best friend vanished. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a wonderful reading of a wonderful part of the book.
Thank you.